Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Cassie Villela, and I'm a realtor, property manager, and investor here in San Antonio, Texas. On my channel, we talk about all things real estate, from data to home design. So if that's your cup of tea, then make sure you like, follow, subscribe. I'm on all the social medias. So today we're going to talk about some new HOA laws. So HOA stands for Homeowners Association. Chances are, if you've bought a home in San Antonio, you've dealt with one. They're very common in neighborhoods. They are associations of the homeowners that basically keep the common areas clean, maybe do some landscaping, maybe you have a community pool, maybe you have a gated community, somebody has to pay for the gate. So there are associations that take fees from every homeowner to carry out the business of the neighborhood, basically. In the housing forecast that I attended last week, I got to see Senators Donna Campbell and Jose Menendez give like sort of a legislative update, things that they did during the legislative session in 2021 that affected real estate. And the biggest thing they talked about was the changes to HOAs. Apparently, this was a bipartisan effort. Most Texans just really thought that HOAs were going overboard. A lot of homeowners really get angry at the amount of power that HOAs have. I personally always, I've never bought a home in an HOA to live in because I really hate them personally. They do have their features. Some people like them because they kind of keep the neighborhoods looking nice and they have, rules that they can enforce on the different neighbors. So, it's to each their own. But in Texas previously, the laws were really weighted towards the HOAs. So the HOA had more power than the homeowner. And so one of the, what was bipartisan about this effort was people think that property owners should at least be equal to HOAs, if not have, kind of the laws weighted in their favor. Because that's what they did. So this was Senate Bill 1588. That was passed again in 2021. So last year, it's already in effect. So I'm going to go over the different ways that they changed the laws or brought in some new laws for HOAs. The biggest one, I think, or probably the one that will affect you the most, is that they capped fees for resale certificates and subdivision information. If you're in the process of buying a house, you know that there are just 1,000,001 different little fees that you have to pay along the way, and it really adds up to a lot of money at the end of the day. And one of the fees is usually, again, if the home's in an HOA, and most homes in San Antonio are going to be in an HOA. So one of the fees is getting the resale certificate and subdivision information from the HOA. Personally, sometimes I see it as a bit of a racket. So, of course, the resale certificate I understand because that's kind of specific to that particular owner and that particular property. But the subdivision information is just all of the documentation of the subdivision, all of the rules, regulations, things like that. Some HOAs charge an extremely high fee for this. And then what they do is just send a PDF of these documents to the title company. Maybe they mail a packet of papers, but most of the time now it's digital. And they'll charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for this service. So I have always found that to be just, unbelievable. I think people just, they are expecting all of these fees when they're buying a home. So it's just not something they pay attention to. They capped the fee for that subdivision information at $375. Believe it or not, I have seen HOAs charge even more than that. So it is good that they've capped that. That is still pretty high though. Most HOAs, it's going to be more around $150, $200. But I'm just happy to know that there is a cap now. The resale certificate, they've capped at $75. So those are both reasonable amounts, I think, for the HOAs, but homeowners aren't getting taken advantage of. Hope that makes sense. So another thing regarding that subdivision information that is excellent. is that HOAs that have at least 60 lots or who are contracted with a management company. So most HOAs, other than like really small niche communities, maybe like a one street community, most HOAs are going to have 60 lots or more. They have to make those documents, the subdivision information, available on a website. I think that that's huge because if you are a homeowner, if you're a home buyer and you're looking at a home, it's really important to know what the rules of the HOA are. That's a really important thing to know. Some HOAs have really weird rules. Like I was looking at a home with one buyer, and one of the rules was that nobody could live with you who wasn't related by blood. So they were like, I can't have a roommate, or I can't like have, like whatever. Like it's just this weird rule that was in there that they said, oh, I don't want that house because I don't like that rule. There are some weird rules that you need to be aware of. And if you can't get the information until you're going to pay hundreds of dollars, and usually the HOA documentation is not the first thing that gets done in a transaction. It's usually about half of the way through. So you've probably also already spent money on an inspection, maybe a survey, other things like that, before you even receive the subdivision information to make a decision on whether or not you want to buy the property. So I think that that's terrible. A lot of HOAs have already put it online, which I find really helpful. And so this is just mandating that they have to put it online. And that's going to give buyers a lot more transparency going in, so they're not wasting hundreds of dollars and then later on having to think like, is this HOA bad enough that I'm going to back out and waste all of this money that I've spent? They have to have their documentation online. Great. It's 2022. Feels like we shouldn't have to say that, right? HOAs are required to file some paperwork with the county. That's kind of more going to affect the HOA and not you. They passed some protections for property owners who get a negative credit reporting if a fee is late or in dispute. They have to, it regulates how the HOA has to deal with late fees or fines, things like that, which is great. There's some conflict of interest within HOA Architectural Review Board regulations that were passed. One that is really relevant to landlords or investors: HOAs cannot require you to give them a lease agreement. They're only allowed to request the tenant's contact info and lease beginning and end dates. So I don't know how many HOAs were asking that. I have not seen that personally, but they are not allowed to anymore. They're just allowed to ask for the tenant's contact info, which makes sense. HOAs are required now to solicit bids for contracts for services over $50,000. So basically trying to make sure that they're spending the money responsibly and not, doing kickbacks or, kind of keeping it in the family or something like that. HOAs are, so this is a really big one. So property owners, I think the biggest horror stories you will hear about HOAs is when the property owner wants to do something to their property and the HOA is not letting them. And so we have a million different scenarios that would have a million different outcomes, right? But there are some that are kind of, like no nonsense, right? So like installing a security camera. This law makes it to where HOAs cannot bar you from installing security equipment on your house. Solar panels, Jose Menendez mentioned the other day, solar panels was a big one that they included. If you want to have solar panels, the HOA cannot stop you from having solar panels. The pool safety enclosures, so doing things to your swimming pool for safety reasons, religious displays. So there's some certain things that they're basically saying, no, if a property owner wants to do these things, they have the right to. The HOA cannot stop them. So that was, that's giving property owners a little more freedom to do what they want to do with their property. in certain areas. There's still going to be rules on fences and, colors and plants and things are still allowed. It's just things that have to do with safety, security, or like solar panels. HOAs are required to provide members with timely notice about meetings. So that's, kind of written into the law. And then dispute resolution. So those are the main ones. TREC is also going to create a publicly accessible central database of HOAs. And so they'll be required, all HOAs are going to be required to file with the county and with TREC, and then TREC's going to keep this database. I don't know how useful that will be. Maybe I'll have to look at it and see how it turns out. I think the most useful thing is going to be being able to find the information on the HOA's website, and the fees being capped. I think those are probably the two biggest ones that I think will help buyers and even sellers, because just having that information public is going to help make sure that the buyer is serious. So I think all of that is good. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments. I'll link down below to the full readout of the bill, and I hope I see you in the next video.